Okay, here we go. I call this meeting of the Northwest Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present and that this meeting has been duly called and that notice of the meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code 551. And note that Josh Wright and Mark Sluter are not present tonight. And we're going to close session. Sorry, I thought y'all knew where to go. Okay, it is 6:30, so we're going to reconvene to our regular meeting and start with the invocation and pledge of allegiance. Dr. Warren?
All right, everybody please rise for us. Folks, appreciate everybody coming out tonight. It's good to see everyone. If you feel comfortable doing so, please pray with me. Our dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this day, and Lord, we just ask your blessings for our meeting tonight. We appreciate you letting us get it together like this for your children. Lord, bless our board members tonight. Bless our leaders. Thank you for all of our parents, our community members for being here, and especially our students. Lord, above all thing else, please provide your love, your guidance, your wisdom, and your protection to our children. It's in your name we pray. Amen. All right, folks, we have three very special guests from K. Granger Elementary School. And let's see, Michelle McAdams is in the house. Where are you, Michelle? Good to see you. All right, Caroline Bell. Step up, Caroline. Good to see you. And we have Sophia Santiago. And we have Edmund Driggy. All right, let's see. Caroline. And let's see, where's your mom? Jamie? Good to see you. Caroline's favorite subjects are language arts and music. Good job, Caroline. I enjoy being a student council officer and a member of Northwest Children's Choir. My favorite things to do are to sing and to act. I love musical theater. I also love to read, sketch, write, and cheer. You never sit still, do you, Caroline? Mrs. McAdams says this: Caroline is an excellent example of a kid with character. She is always seeking out ways to help others. She's very involved in her church and loves to serve. She always has a smile on her face, just like that one. And she is no doubt will find her performing on the stage in the near future. We love her positive attitude and growth mindset. Caroline, thank you for coming. Sophia, and we have Angelo and Esperanza. Nice to see you. Sophia, great job. I love all subjects. Nice job. You didn't even have to say that in front of your principal. Way to go. She likes to hang out with her friends. She likes coding, reading, writing, and spending time with my parents. Good job. Sophia is an inquisitive student with an engineer's mind. I often find her in the maker space, creating and exploring. She is one of our first students to have her own books, Hacks for Chromebooks, published and is placed in our school library. She is also involved with Lego Robotics Club and Destination Imagination. Sophia is a shining star. Thank you for coming, Sophia. All right, Edmund, and we have Brian. Good to see you. Favorite subjects: math, science, ELA, and art. That's almost everything, Edmund. Good job. I like to do Lego Robotics, UIL Number Sense, and I have participated in the Ultimate Book Challenge. Edmund is a student who always displays the Wrangler way. He participates in many of our after-school clubs and is always looking for a way to challenge himself academically. His DI team made it to state 2 years in a row. Great job. This year, Edmund's UBC team won first place in the campus competition, and his team will be representing Granger in the upcoming district competition. Very proud of this Wrangler. Edmund, great job. All right, so Wranglers, if you will help us, we're going to pledge to the American flag first and then the Texas flag.
Attention.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great. Now Texas.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Great job. Y'all stay put right there. Mrs. Copp's got something for you. And board, while they're doing that,
All right, good evening. So for recognitions, it looks a little bit different this evening because we are celebrating School Board Recognition Month, along with several other school districts across the state of Texas. Our elected members of the Northwest ISD community serve in an unpaid role to help guide our school district as we plan for our future. So we have lots of student performances and presentations this evening. So tonight we have the 7th and 8th grade men's choir from Pike Middle School. They're under the direction of Tyler Adcock and Jordan Ricks, and they're going to perform the national anthem in one of their UIL pieces. So if you'll please stand for the national anthem. Thank you so much to our choir, our directors, and our accompanist, Cheryl Lemons, for your help. We appreciate it. All right, as they're making their way off, we have some more student presentations for our board, so I'm going to ask our board members to come to the front, please. They can. This year's theme for School Board Recognition Month is Planting the Seeds of Success. Tonight we have students from Justin Elementary School's Art Club presenting a rock for a garden for the school board members to use. So these students first sketched their designs on smooth river rocks and eventually painted them during their club meetings. So their art teacher is here with them, and we'll have them come to the front to present. So Megan White is here with Lauren Scott, Regan Wilhelm, Bella Childs, Brody Caswell, Kristen Kennedy, Clara Cox, Rhiannon Kelsey. And they will present what they have designed. We want to get a big group picture, so if y'all can come together. And you can see some of the designs on the screens that they did.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you all.
Okay, in our final presentation for you guys, we have members from the Northwest High School, Eaton High School, and Byron Nelson High School horticulture classes, and they have a vegetative design that's an indoor house plant that you can enjoy year-round. So from Northwest High School, we have Casey Reed, the teacher, with students Mackenzie Fowler, Lindsay Langford, and Lauren Shekowitz. And as I say your name, you can come to the front. From Eaton High School, we have Kristen Stockard with students Kara Renfro, Brooke Preston, and Heston Edwards. And then from Byron Nelson High School, we have teacher Julie Holland with her students Michaela Shakani, Bella Allen, and Sophia Irwin. And again, we'll want to get a big group picture with everybody. Awesome. Thank you so much. So again, thank you, school board members, for all you do for our community, for our teachers, for our students. Thank you, students and parents, for being here. School board members, except for Judy Kopp, if you guys want to go back to your seats, you can. We have a few more recognitions to do, unless you want to stay for all of them. All right. So next, I'd like to invite Connie Thompson to the front. And I'd also like to ask our Deputy Superintendent, Rob Thornell, to come to the front as well. Connie is a computer technician in the technology department, and she is the winner of our GEM Award, which is sponsored by EECU Credit Union. The GEM Award stands for Going the Extra Mile and is a customer service recognition. Connie was presented this award in December and is known for her patience, knowledge, and ability to stay calm when solving a problem. She was nominated by her peers, and they said that she does her job with a smile and is the true definition of customer service. So thank you, Connie. And next we have CoServe here with us this evening. So I'm going to invite Vicki Sargent to the podium. She has two different check presentations that she's going to be making to the school district and then to the Education Foundation. So thank you for being here, Vicki.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Dr. Worm. We like Northwest ISD too. I have to tell you, every time I have the privilege to come and spend time in your district and at your board meetings, I'm particularly impressed with the time and care and attention that you give to your students. And I'm very familiar with the work that you do as a school board trustee, and I know that it is unpaid, and it's a lot more than just this meeting. It's all the other meetings and the time that you spent doing your homework. So thank you for serving your community that way, and thank you for making it very clear to the public in your community that you put students first. That makes my heart warm. Now, speaking with my CoServe hat on instead of my educator hat, we are very happy to be here tonight to share some money back with you that will tell you a little bit about how it's different to belong to a co-op. And I'm guessing that some of you who are here are probably also CoServe members, and you may have noticed as a member on your December check that you had a credit for a capital credit. Well, tonight we're here to bring you a check for just over $80,000 for your capital credits that your board of directors retired in December. And representing the board of directors is Curtis Talley, obviously a member of your community. And another thing that's a little bit different, something else that's a little bit different about a cooperative is that you have an elected representative. Just like a school board, you have a board of directors that lead your co-op, and Mr. Talley has represented your area quite ably for quite a period of time. It is something that is unusual about a cooperative, and we're pleased to partner with you. You're free to use that money in your general fund, however you like to use it. It's up to you. Yay. And we have one more check for you tonight. I think Emily will, I'll let you fight over the real check. I think Emily will probably accept this one from Jennifer Gibson, who is your community support specialist, and Mario Zavala, who's our community engagement coordinator at CoServe. This is a check for $25,000 to the Northwest Education Foundation. And this check, you may be interested to know, will bring to the total that CoServe members, it's not from CoServe, it's from our members. About 75% of our members round their bill up every month to the nearest dollar, and this will bring to the total contributed back to Northwest Education Foundation to just over $266,000. And we are so proud of the way that you use that money and appreciative.
Okay, we're not done yet. Next, I'd like to introduce Jerry Cantu, who's going to recognize our Adopt a School business partners.
Thank you, Emily. I appreciate it. Tonight, we'd like to welcome two new partners to the NISD Adopt a School program. At this time, I'd like to ask Granger Elementary School Principal Michelle McAdams to join us up front. Hey, are you? We would like to recognize Jake Werman of Fathom Realty. Mr. Werman and Fathom Realty collaborated with Granger Elementary on several initiatives. Mr. Werman, there he is. Come on, join us up front. Collaborated with Granger Elementary on several initiatives, including the sponsorship of their Teacher of the Month program. Mr. Werman is actually serving double duty today because he is also president of the Saratoga Homeowners Association. Mr. Sproles is actually a former president of the Homeowners Association as well, and they work closely with the city on improving road conditions and safety and security for the campus as well. So serving double duty for the campus has really proved to be a very big deal for Granger. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Werman to the NISD Adopt a School program. Thank you, Mr. Werman. Appreciate it. Next, I'd like to ask Sendera Ranch Principal John Bowles and Counselor Leanne Trice to join us up front. Our next Adopt a School partners, are Jason and Lauren Ramey of Bumbershoot Barbecue. I believe Jason cannot join us today, but his wife is here to represent. Jason and Lauren are heavily involved in the Sendera Ranch Angel Tree program, providing 28 large turkeys and free meals to our campus families. The Ramies have also worked closely with the Sendera Ranch PTA organization through financial contributions and family nights at Bumbershoot Barbecue. Please join me in welcoming the Ramies to our NISD Adopt a School program. And that's it for recognitions. Thank you for everybody for attending.
Okay, now we're moving to public participation, and I have a statement I need to read before we start. Public participation is an opportunity for the public to address the board on any matter, whether or not it is on the agenda. The board may place reasonable restraints on the number, length, and frequency of presentations, so long as it does not unfairly discriminate among speakers based on viewpoint. Each presentation is limited to 3 minutes. Groups of more than 5 people shall appoint one person to speak for the group. Speakers should refrain from mentioning by name an employee or student about whom they might be complaining. The board may not deliberate or take action on a presentation about an item not on the agenda. Mr. Alvoyd, please step to the podium and state your name and address.
Hello, my name is Greg Alvord. I live at 1221 Spanish Moss Drive in Aubrey, Texas. And first of all, I want to thank the board and the superintendent for allowing this time to speak to you. I wanted to speak about the fact that I am running for Texas State School Board, District 14, the district in which this ISD is involved. I have 3 passions. I'm passionate about my 6 grandchildren, I'm passionate about public education, and I'm passionate about the teaching of science and math and the consequences that it has to our society. All of my education, from elementary through graduate school, has been at public institutions. I served on a school board in New York for 12 years and received an award from the New York State School Boards Association. I have graduate work in physics and astrophysics, computer science. I've worked for New York State Department of Health and NASA. So my life has been involved with doing interesting things with computers because as a high school student, I learned to program in Fortran, graduating in 1960. And in my lifetime, computer skills have gone from a rarity to something that is almost essential for every job we have. And I challenge you to think of the careers of your students now, the ones we've seen today. What will their careers be like? What will the skill that is rare today become essential in the 30 years of their work life or more? I think that there are two parts to the things that kids get that will be able to help them in the future: the knowledge, which is testable, and the skills, which are learned but not testable. Skills like curiosity, problem solving, collaboration with others, analytics, and problem solving. No matter how the future unfolds, those are the skills that are going to serve them well to face the future as it unfolds. And I hope to be able to represent this ISD and Denton County in District 14 of the Texas State School Board to help guide the curriculum towards those goals. Thank you much for your time.
Good job. Thank you.
Okay. Our next item is the consent agenda. Board.
Madam President, I move to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Okay, I have a motion by Dr. Simpson, a second by Mr. Sproles. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor? 5-0.
Thank you, Board.
Our next item is naming a principal for Lance Thompson Elementary School. Dr. Warren?
Board, this is an action item for you tonight. I am very proud. First of all, I'm sure Dr. Thornell will do this, but please thank the members of all the committees who worked on this so hard. Over 60 different applicants, Board, 11 different finalists, and I'm very proud to bring you the name Amy Howell, who is our current principal at Schluter Elementary School. She did actually participate on the design committee for the new Lance Thompson Elementary School, and we're very proud for her to bring her to you as a recommendation for building principal.
Madam President,
Dr. Roush?
I motion to name Amy Howell as the principal of Lance Thompson Elementary School as recommended by the administration.
I have a motion by Dr. Roush, a second by Mr. Hastings. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor? Carries 5-0.
Thank you, Board.
Okay, our next item is the 2019-20 instructional calendar. Dr. Warren?
Board, this is your next action item tonight. The information on this begins on page 12 in your packet. If you remember, Dr. Espinosa did a really good job introducing this to you last board meeting, and I believe she's just got a couple of reports to you on her work since then, and then we'll have a recommendation for you.
Yes, I do. Just, I'm going to go through really quickly what I did last time, but I left it here in case we needed to review anything. But we took the feedback from DEIC and from campuses and all the feedback that we received to make this our final recommended calendar. The main change that we did is the teachers wanted to continue to have a flex day so that they could hold parent-teacher conferences. That was very important to them and feel like that's an important thing for our parents and students as well. And so basically we just made that change where we have 2 days for professional learning as flex days and then 1 flex day for those parent conferences to make that happen. And then the other small change we made is we have our new teachers starting on August 1st. And then you'll see there the 6th and 7th of August, there is no color because those are going to be just off days. We wanted to give the new teachers a little bit of a break, a little bit of chance to breathe after all of that new teacher training before they came back full force with all of our teachers. Some of them probably will want to be in their rooms and work, but it's not going to be a work day unless they want to do so. But we thought that was important to them because we all remember how exhausting those first few days are before we get back with all of our teachers. So are there any questions about those changes or anything else in the calendar?
Board, I'd recommend approval.
Madam President,
Mr. Sproles?
I move to approve the 2019-2020 instructional calendar as recommended by the administration.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Sproles, a second by Dr. Roush. Is there any other questions or discussion? All those in favor? 5-0.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Great work.
Okay, our next item is budget perimeters for the 2019-20 school year. Dr. Warren?
Board, the information in your packet on the board budget parameters begin on page 27. The actual recommendations that John will have you look at begin on page 34. John and his crew did a great job of outlining the process on page 34. And then, of course, the guidance that we need from you, the direction on the elementary class sizes, the elementary staffing ratios on page 35, middle school on page 36, and the high school on page 37. John?
Yeah. Essentially, this is substantially, but with some greater level of detail, the presentation that y'all received last meeting with the vision and the mission statement and the strategic goals. And these are all going to be important to guide us because as we get into the numbers, we're going to have some tough decisions to make. The revenue assumptions, of course, are built around student enrollment, which is a fairly good number. The assessed value of taxable property, which is a fairly not good number, to be honest. It's a number that will evolve as we get the information from the appraisal districts. And, of course, the 86th legislature has a lot of very vague words, but no actual proposals out there on school finance. And differences are substantial already between the House and the Senate in terms of just raw numbers. Expenditure assumptions, we have the class size ratios. The campus staffing formulas that Dr. Warren alluded to are critical. We need y'all's approval on that. And then we need to talk a bit about fiscal sustainability and fund balance and what your tolerance is for the 19-20 budget. Going through the enrollment, which we've seen several times before, we're going up over 25,000 in 19-20. We'll know by the end of the 5-year forecast, we'll be up over 30,000 as we continue to grow in this area. Here's just a breakout by the types of, by the grade levels, rather, by year. And the property values, we had 13% in 17-18. We're running at 18.5%, nearly 19% in the current year. At this point, I used a number of 12% as a placeholder, and that's literally what it is. This is an important number, obviously, because that's where most of our revenue comes from, as well as our recapture now. I lowered it down to about what we received in 17-18. It's a little higher than the best estimate we got from the appraisal districts, which was 10%, but I feel pretty good about it. I think out years are going to get interesting. We're starting to see housing slow down nationally, but the local market, of course, is quite strong, and I think Bob Templeton will talk to that quite a bit. So I think the 19 number will be a good number, but after that, it's going to be a little more interesting, to say the least. Looking back over the budget, we've had positive fund balances for most years. Last year was, we did not, though. However, we went down by about $6.6 million. The problem, of course, is going forward. In the 18-19 budget, we're projecting only about a $7.5 million use of fund balance, which is in line with what we had last year. But then after that, the recapture kicks in with a vengeance, and it starts to go over $20 million a year in a clearly unsustainable path, and that's what we kind of need to talk about tonight. This is just a financial schedule with all the details, but I think the critical detail is the $22.5 million projected to be used to balance the 19-20 budget, and we'd like your reactions to that. I will have two caveats in there, and this is one of those things where you're just going to have to be patient as the year evolves. One is as we get the property values coming in starting in April, and the second is what the legislature does starting soon, hopefully. We'll see some bills on school finance. calendar, of course, you have with the budget planning, preparation. We'll be distributing the budget packages on February the 7th, bringing them back in early March. The executive cabinet and superintendent will be reviewing with all the executive directors the budget proposals and requests, which will then be compiled through April and presented to the board as a recommended budget in May, but we'll be having budget updates throughout to bring you up to speed on what we have learned from the legislative process, the appraisal process, and any other things that might be affecting the budget process. Of course, the budget adoption is in June, the tax rate adoption is in August, and it is possible to schedule a tax ratification election if you desire this year or another year. So that's going to be part of the conversation as well. Like I said, the 86th legislature is probably the biggest wild card. And, of course, a tax ratification election, I think, is in this district's future unless something really remarkable happens in the state legislature. So I kind of want to just cut to the staffing ratios at this point and see if there's any questions. They're substantially unchanged. There were some minor adjustments to the cut points with counselors and assistant principals and the addition of a interventionist at the middle schools and a little more detail at the elementary schools as to when an additional intervention specialist is added. Rob Thornell and Kim can answer any specific questions in those areas if you should have any. And then I think Dr. Warren may want to add to this, but I think we're interested to hear what y'all think about our projected $20 million use of fund balance.
You want me to say something?
Please.
I will. All right. Well, I appreciate all the detail that goes into this, and the staffing formulas I know are critically important, and class size, obviously I prefer the 22-to-1 in elementary, and I get concerned at the secondary level. I think about the English teachers grading 150 essays and giving quality feedback, and I think about the counselors, and these are all critically important positions. However, I also know that we have to be good stewards of the taxpayer dollar, and it looks really scary to me. And I just don't see how we can really afford to dip into that fund balance at this rate with the unpredictability of the legislature. I think we have an obligation to put a teacher in every classroom, and I want to do that, but I don't know that we can really afford at this point to be able to support the staffing formula at the risk of dipping into that fund balance so significantly. And obviously we have no control right now over the recapture. And so it just looks to me like we are on a very slippery slope, and I am very concerned.
No, that's good.
I think I heard y'all say this before, but isn't 80% of our expenses revenue or staff-based?
Yeah, if you count in contracted services, because unlike some other districts, we contract out some big numbers of transportation and food service. But when you count those employees as a payroll as opposed to a contracted expense, yes, it can run 80 to 85% of your general operating fund expenditures. So
Okay.
it's essentially we're a people business.
So if we're going to have to make cuts in the future, it's going to have to be with people more than likely.
And I would like to use the word positions, because one of the nice things about us is, as a growing district, merely freezing positions and raising the ratios, you can get there from here. And I give you an example back in, 6 or 8 now, if memory fades. But when we had the terrible fiscal crisis in the United States, a lot of districts had to RIF people. But all we did was freeze positions and absorb the additional students. So I would like to, when we have these discussions, focus on the fact that what we are talking about is positions and not people, generally speaking. I mean, And so we did not have to do a RIF when many other districts did.
Steve, the one thing we've heard loud and clear from the board in previous, or at least the previous 3 years since I've been here, the class sizes do matter to us, that we really want to protect those. So the parameters that are on the class sizes, both for elementary and secondary, remain unchanged. We did go up a little bit on the administrative help, on the operational help for the campuses. Those are the things that the board will finally have to decide on, is what's the threshold for the fund balance as opposed to the threshold on a TRE. When are we bleeding too much until we have to put that TRE in place? John kind of rolls his eyes every time I say this, but the number one goal always is to bring a balanced budget. And in this environment, it is so hard. It's so hard to bring you a balanced budget. And John he's always very conservative in his thing. And so it always looks bad at the very beginning to when we finish. I have a lot more optimism, and I haven't said this in a long time. I do have more optimism this legislative session than I've had in a long time, because I think the law is going to change. I don't know how it's going to change. I don't know yet how it's going to affect us, but it is going to change. So we may see recapture go away. We may see recapture capped, lowered. Whatever it is about us. We're the poster child for everything that's wrong with the state finance system right now. 2 years ago, we lost ASETAR, which was a promise from the state to fund us at a level that we knew, and they went away from that. Very next year, we hit the recapture threshold. So it just kind of keeps piling on us, and we, as John just explained, we're not a district that can stand still. We're hiring probably 60 teachers a year, new teachers a year, just to keep up with the growth. And so the reason why I wanted y'all to approve these parameters now, which there's nothing that says we can't go revisit this when we get into the middle or to the end, because of what we're going to know, as John stated, when the numbers come in from the counties, and when the legislature gives us their decision. There's nothing we can't revisit. I think the goal has to be to not do a TRE first. That needs to be our last case scenario. But if you say, okay, Ryder, we want you to come within $7 million to $10 million of fund balance, and not go up to the 20, not go up to the 30, that's where we're going to have to really wrap our mind. And that's the reason why we're going to organize those meetings with our executive directors to really dig in deep into the weeds and their needs, to see kind of a multi-layer, multi-year of what we can do to make sure that we fund them as appropriately as possible, but still keep within your guidance or for fiscal responsibility.
Yeah, I think that the state is kind of backing us in a corner to where no matter what we decide, there's going to be some negative consequences. So, Ann's talking about class size ratios. If you go too high, I think you're going to scare away future talent when we need to be hiring teachers for the new schools. And then as a parent, we're in this district for a reason because of all the great programs it offers. Yeah. And I don't want to cut that because of the opportunities. The gentleman that spoke earlier, and I think even Dr. Roos said before, planning for jobs that don't exist yet. We can't go backwards. We got to keep going forward. So I had some challenges ahead. So another question I have for what was presented, the highlights, was that based on just district ones, or was this from like a TA recommendation?
On which part?
The yellow highlights that were in there.
That is something the staff got together to recommend. Again, not touching the class sizes now, to go forward with our budget process, protecting class sizes, but also knowing, we have scenarios out there where we have class size increases. We've got to look at so many different scenarios on there, but from your guidance to us, I think you need to stick to your guns right now to those class sizes, and then we will come back, and again, we did a lot of talk internally about how can we wait? What can we do? Can we wait till we hire another assistant principal? How many more kids can we get in and wait to be able to do that, to hopefully save some funding there?
Okay, thank you.
Of course, we always want to save as much funding as we can. Can we come up with some scenarios on what you might do to save, say, $5 to $10 million out of this?
Well, I think
we're projected.
let's be honest. I mean, most of it's what Steve Sproul's brought up. We're talking about positions, and most of your positions are teachers. And so most of your big money, I mean, obviously you would look at everything A through Z, but your big money is in your largest population groups. And so you have to start looking at pupil-teacher ratios, as we've done internally already. We've brought back the current ones, but if you come back and say we need to cut $5 to $10 million, you have to look in those areas. Going back to some past things we did triple stagger on busing at one year for a long time. And that had impacts on how early the day started for some and how late the day went for others. So we're talking tough decisions. And that's why I actually always start out with the mission, the goals, and the instructional stuff, because it really comes down to is, yes, we're going to cut something that's going to affect kids, ultimately. The question is how many and how much, and you start with those that do the least impact and start working your way up. So, and you have to look at everything from staff development to, like I said, triple staggered teaching, transportation, to all the various support services that we give to our teachers through curriculum and all of the support areas in C&I. So yeah, it's everything. But when you start talking big numbers, you've got to look at positions, and you've got to look at the positions that you have the most of. And so that's where the rubber and the road start to meet. So really there's three things. And the other thing, of course, you look at is compensation. Right now, we're at a good spot. North Dallas, Fort Worth area is the most highly compensated area in the state, with the exception of maybe some places in Houston, I guess, and I don't know where else. But when we look at salary surveys, generally we're in the top 10 out of 1,000 districts. But now it happens that all 10 of them are probably our neighbors. So it's not like we can say, well, we're way above everybody around here, and we don't have to compete against, wherever the others are. So this area here is extremely salary intensive. So that drives up our operating costs quite a bit compared to other districts. So you slack off salaries here, unfortunately, you're in a bind vis-a-vis your neighbor districts that you can't get away with, so to speak. So you got what you pay people, you got how many people you got, and then you got the programs. On the flip side, you have your tax rate. That brings us back to a TRE. And of course, we have the two wild cards, which is property growth and the legislature this year. So those are all the moving pieces.
And to further answer your question, Judy, I think that's exactly, your question was exactly what I think we have to do for the board. I think first meeting in February, I've asked John and Rob and Kim to start talking to you in our budget workshops. They're going to start talking about needs. I sent you a study from TASB. I sent you a opinion from our auditors. So we're going to throw out some positions that we think we need, and then probably the second meeting in February, we're going to talk about priorities. And we're going to talk about, those positions we think we can't live without, the ones that we would like, the ones that we'll probably need, but we're probably not even going to go there right now. And then we will start those, what John was talking about, those scenarios. If this happens, what do we need to do? What areas would we have to cut significantly? What positions would we cut significantly above and beyond what we need for growth? Stop hiring for growth. There's going to be, I'm going to cross your eyes with the scenarios that we're going to see, but I think you have to do that as you roll through the spring and we get into those workshops and then really dive deep into them in May. I think that's something that the board has to really make the good decision about the end process. And by then, again, we've done this. John has done this a long time. I've done this for a long time. It always looks the worst now. It really does. It always looks, and it gets better. Even when the legislature is not committed to changing the system, it does get better. So we just need to stay calm and go and work the process.
I guess mine is right now we're just setting the parameters for the rest of Rob and them to
you're giving
begin looking at how many people and what the costs are and things like that.
Yes.
We're not locking into anything.
No. You're giving us our marching orders to start the process. The next step will be to have a talk next week with the entire district leadership team to talk about the budget process, and then we'll start working.
Okay.
I just want to say I appreciate the fact that you did keep the class sizes
You're welcome.
small.
Yeah.
Thank you.
When we do run different scenarios, we just look at, what would happen if we increase class size with, some of the ratios.
Board, I'd recommend approval.
Madam President, I move that we approve the budget parameters for the 2019-2020 school year as recommended by the administration.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Hastings, a second by Mr. Sproles. Is there any other discussion?
I guess I don't know exactly, if we were setting parameters, what did we discuss about fund balance, or where, I don't know, what are we agreeing to? We're giving you.
No, you gave us great guidance on that. I mean, the parameters that we'd like you to approve in are page 34 is the actual process, and that didn't change from year to year. But then giving us the guidance on the class size ratios, which remained unchanged for elementary, middle, and high, and then the staffing ratios for all the other staff that is listed. That gives us your direction on doing that. And then as we go through the process, we will keep the conversation on the fund balance as we get closer to learning our true revenue and our true expenditure requests.
And so when we looked at the staffing ratios, did we look at just basic, what it's going to take to be sure that we can meet the academic needs of the students? And what would that look like in comparison to what we have here?
And make sure, Rob, Kim, make sure I'm saying this right. That's exactly what we did. This is what we call our basic package on how we want to staff campuses. We're also working on for scenarios on, if we have positions in the central office, if we have positions in our finance department, in our instructional department, in our operations department, we're going to bring those discussions to you and bring that information to you, go over that TASB study, go over that, and then we can just work through exactly what we can and can't do as the process proceeds, and just kind of having an ongoing conversation between administration and the board as we go through the budget process. So yes, this is the basic parameters that we would like to set us to work.
And based on these basic parameters, we are really dipping into fund balance.
Based on current law.
So again, I guess I'm struggling here because I really don't think we can afford to dip into fund balance. So I'm having trouble with the formulas.
Right, but remember, you're not dipping anything in there right now. That doesn't come until you actually raise your hand to approve or don't raise your hand to disapprove the final budget recommendation in June, the end of June. This just gives us your guidance, the board's guidance, as we go through the process to see how close to a balanced budget that we can truly come, knowing that this is what we would like, this is a goal that you would like us to achieve.
This is basic.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
This is basically parameters for growth, so we can start hiring for the new year, right?
Teachers.
And then we can revisit this if
Absolutely.
we're not happy.
Well, I'm not. I don't think it's an if. I think we are going to constantly revisit this.
Right.
So this is basically the parameters so they can start hiring the classroom teachers?
That we can start looking at that. We can start looking at if we need to hire more administrative jobs. I've given you some administrative positions that we think we really need to have. John's department is a great example of that, to make sure that we've got everything covered, the checks and balances covered, but also making sure we understand. Because the number one priority is our campuses, our schools. Everything's got to be based around the needs of the campuses, and that's what gives us the thing. This has got to be done first to make sure we've taken care of this first, and then going through the process of making sure that we're staffing appropriately for the district.
Thank you.
Anything else?
And did you have more to say? You were looking like you had, because I like where you were going, but I was just wondering what else you had.
Well, I think we're kind of in a catch-22 here. I understand that we have to have parameters for staffing. At the same time, the way that I understand this right now, based on these parameters, it is going to take us into a heavy reduction of fund balance. And I don't think right now, with the unpredictability of the legislature, that we should take that risk.
Okay.
So I see positions on here that are possibly something that we might have to do without. But if we put it into the formula, then it's a done deal.
No, not necessarily. You're putting the cart before the horse. This is the guidance that you're going to give us. We have not even handed out the campus expense sheets yet. So the campuses have not even had a chance to fill out those expenditure sheets, everything that their needs. This is just your 1,000-foot guidance to us to start this budget process, knowing that you don't want to use that significant portion of the fund balance that we feel uncomfortable about, and being able to bring you some really good recommendations throughout the spring on what we can do. And I think it's got to be, a constant communication. If we bring you this saying yes or no, yeah, that will work, that will not work, because that might put us down the road to use too much fund balance or not enough, or what's the breaking point of no, we won't cross this line, we've got to fund this. So it's just going to start a really good conversation, I think, for as we move through the spring.
And I kind of remember that in the years past when didn't really understand the process, but I've noticed every time we met, that fund balance overage got shorter and shorter till it was eventually balanced. So really, this is just starting today. This is the worst case. Nothing changes. If nothing changes,
it always is.
This is the worst case, and hopefully will only get better based on external factors and internal factors.
Factors.
Okay. Yeah, I guess in the aviation side, we got a phrase that says you measure with a micrometer, but you cut it with an axe. You execute with an axe, but it seems like we're measuring with a very inaccurate measuring tool, and we're going to fine tune it down the road.
Yeah, and the most aggravating part of the whole process is if the TEA left us alone, if the state left us alone, we could fully fund any balance we wanted to put in front of it. If they would just leave us alone, but we've got to depend on them to realize it is a broken system and to fix it. So I don't like depending on other people. I want to take my guidance from y'all and then make sure that we have you have an awesome staff that'll put together a great budget to bring you under the parameters. It's just the frustrating thing is having to wait on the legislature and have to wait on the state. So, but this, to me, this is a great start from y'all to us to be able to start that process.
I think what's interesting, looking at the numbers, right now we're $22.5 million short, but we're sending almost $27 million to the state forecasted. So if it wasn't for that, then we would add money to the fund.
We would add money, right? That's the broken system.
And that's what's frustrating. Yeah. And then it gets to the TRE when just going to throw up some numbers. We might only need 4 cents, but we have to ask for 8 because there's more recapture. And as a taxpayer, that's very frustrating.
That's very frustrating.
Okay, any other discussion or questions before we vote? All is in favor? Okay, opposed? 4-1.
Thank you, Board.
Okay, item D on action item, contract extension for Dr. Ryder Warren, Superintendent of Schools. Would you like to say anything? Did I say something wrong?
You said it kind of loud, didn't you? No,
just want to be sure
ma'am, I won't have a recommendation on this one.
Okay.
Just your pleasure.
They're going to make me sweat. Madam President.
Thanks, guys.
I move to approve the contract extension for Ryder Warren, Superintendent of Schools.
Okay. Do I have a second? Okay, I have a motion by Dr. Simpson, a second by Mr. Sproles. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? I guess it's 5-0.
Thank you, Board.
Just making sure. All right. Our next item is the RFQ number B018-020-11-009 CM at risk for Eaton High School additions and renovations to include Wilson Middle School and Tidwell Middle School. Dr. Warren?
Board, this is the next project from our 2017 bond, and the information starts on page 54. Mr. McClure is bringing you Buford Thompson Company for the work at all three schools. Buford Thompson had an excellent reputation coming to us, and we think they come very highly recommended. So, Mr. McClure, anything to add?
No, you have the information there before you. I think I was pleased we got 7 responses on the bid from the contractors. You'll hear more about this, I think, and even in some of Bob's reports, just about the labor market right now, the job increase in this area. So to get 7 to show up for bid day was a good number for us, we believed. We took 5. According to law, we can take up to 5 to step 2 for pricing. Interviewed 3 of those, and in all cases, Buford Thompson was the highest rated in all 3 scenarios.
Board, we recommend approval.
Yeah, I'll do this. She's not here. Madam President.
Mr. Sproles.
I motion to award RFQ number B018-020-11-009 CM at risk for Eaton High School additions and renovations to include Wilson Middle School and Tidwell Middle School to Buford Thompson Company, LLC, and authorizing the superintendent or his designee to enter into contracts as recommended by the administration.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Sproles, a second by Dr. Roush. Is there any discussion?
Mr. McClure, what other work have they done for us in the district?
Buford Thompson has not done work for us in the district, but they have done work for many districts around us. And on reference checks, we received very high ratings from our surrounding districts on the reference checks.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All those in favor? 5-0.
Thank you, Board.
Okay. We're going to. All right, our next item is agreement for the cost of work for Phase 3 work at Outdoor Learning Center for drainage and landscape. Dr. Warren?
Board, I'm going to ask President Kopp to table item F and G. We are still not done with our work with the architectural firm to get the final agreements in for either one. Christy and Tim are still working with them to get that, and so I would like to bring that back to you on the February the 11th agenda.
Okay, we'll table F and G and move to H, Northwest ISD Stadium turf replacement and maintenance equipment. Dr. Warren?
Board, this came about from the individual who decided to drive on our field unannounced. Tim has done a great job working with our contractors, Hellas,
yes.
Hellas contractors who put in the field and looking at the damage that was done by that individual. The information on page 61 in your packet, the total cost of the district with the application of our insurance settlement for the entire package that Tim is recommending is about $130,000, $500, and those would come from the 2012 bonds that are still unused from that bond. And I know there's some questions about this, but after your questions, I recommend approval.
Would you like me to give a brief synopsis, or do you want me to just answer questions first? Your pleasure, Board.
Okay, if you would, please.
You may give a brief.
All right, I'm watching the clock.
Synopsis.
2 things. As Dr. Warren mentioned, we had a vandal get on the turf. The insurance had come out and done their assessment. We had a third-party assessment. Their reports provided for you as well. With the type of damage that was incurred, you cannot, and even in any normal damage, it's very difficult to do spot replacement, so little spot replacement on the turf. It actually ends up ruining the warranty long-term. So the best operating procedure is to do a full patch, which is basically between each 5-yard line. all the way across the field. And so one of the recommendations, we went out and walked with the turf manufacturer to see, instead of, because there's no guarantee that our color of grass would match. So you're going to have this kind of, you could have a darker green or lighter green, then go to something else, then something else as we do those patches, and they're intermittent across the field. We certainly just put the field down just a little over a year and a half ago. And so we worked real closely with the manufacturer to say, what is the best way we can get a field that looks like what we paid for with the cheapest amount of money. So what we've decided and what's being presented to you today is they would keep all the white lines. So they're actually doing a little bit more labor for us. They're actually being a good partner in this proposal. It's a little more labor intensive, but we're literally just replacing every green inside the turf playing field. We're not doing anything outside the turf playing field. We're not doing the end zones to help prevent that from looking, bad, basically. The other thing is some of those areas were so grossly worn from the tire burns that there is a concern with that area hardening, which would, if someone fell on it, could cause an injury. So that was the other reason for bringing that in. The other one I wanted to just bring up was the last piece of this, which is the equipment, the groomer and the equipment piece. When we did this turf replacement 2 years ago, we actually only had one piece of equipment that we took, and we had one guy put it on a trailer and drove it around the district. Hindsight 2020, we should have probably had this in that proposal back then. We added a lot of turf back then. Since then, we have actually been able to expand our facilities techs at our high school level, so we now have 2 maintenance guys at those high schools. They've separated duties. One focuses on athletic duties, one focuses on main high school duties. It would be very beneficial to us to have that equipment at each high school so they can maintain their fields, and then that 4th piece of equipment would still be maintained by athletics to go around to do the middle school fields. And that just keeps the longevity of our fields in that, hopefully, that 8 to 10 year replacement cycle if we're keeping them per the manufacturer's recommendations, which is about once a month, getting out there and grooming them. And so we have the staff to do that. It would just be helpful to have the equipment to do that on location. And as Dr. Warren mentioned, currently right now we're sitting at about $6 million in undesignated savings from the 2012 bond. We are waiting to close out Adams Middle School, which is the last big project in the 2012 bond. And then once we close out Adams, we'll bring you that synopsis of where we are in general with the bond savings. But the projects have saved upwards of $6 million throughout the life of that bond so far. And I'm happy to entertain any questions in addition to that.
I just have one question. On the insurance, is the reason it didn't cover more because the spots was what they were wanting you to do?
That's right.
We're doing more. Yeah,
hats off to Kitty. I know Kitty worked very diligently with them, as she does with all our claims. So we worked closely with Kitty and Joel and the manufacturer and our third party, and Kitty handled a lot of that responsibility for us with the claims. But yes, their insurance adjuster was opting towards just the spots and saying that it was overkill to the other way, even though we had third party recommendation the other stating the other side.
I have a question. I'm just curious. Is the difference, the variation in the color, is that an aesthetic thing, or is there a reason, or is it because so much of it has to be replaced that they're going to go ahead and replace it anyway?
Yeah, it is more an aesthetic thing because the dye lots are produced at the time of the manufacturer that's made. It's no different than if we tried to go and replace this carpet today and said, hey, we want this exact carpet. Well, this carpet was made 10 years ago. They could reproduce this carpet, but the color strands might be off, and you would notice a difference. So there is a difference in the dye lots that we have zero control over. And so then even if you put them out there, you could get 10 yards of one color, then 15 yards of the next, then 5 yards of one, and then 10 yards of the next, and it'd be a little sporadic. So that's why we were trying to find the best option at the best value to make the field look like it does today.
So it'd have a patchwork look to it?
It would have a patchwork look to it, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And my other question was how we were maintaining them, but you answered that.
Okay.
So.
Just a quick question. So they're going to replace everything from the goal line to goal line, from sideline to sideline, inside the white. Does that include the NISD logo in the middle?
Yes, they are replacing the logo. That's one of the things they actually kind of said they would throw in for us and help us with that. I don't believe we had any areas where numbers were damaged. It's usually fascinating to people, but all that stuff is hand sewn in. So the numbers don't come in those sections. They actually hand sew. So they'll hand sew those out. They'll put in the new section, hand sew the numbers right back in. So they're utilizing as much of the undamaged material that's not the green infill as they possibly can.
And they'll address the compaction of the underlayment in those areas that he decided he wanted to spin his tires.
In order to do that, they actually pull all the material out, all the granular material, and then they'll put that back and they'll re-fluff it. So. And one point to make, we have a E-cushion layer underneath all our equipment that helps with that softening to help prevent injuries. All assessments show that that was not damaged. However, when they do take it up, we will look at it again visually to make sure, but the assessments show that the E layer was not damaged.
If it's approved, will this all be done before next season, or when will the work be done?
Yes, sir. That's why we're bringing it to you today, because summer does become turf season for those manufacturers. So we would like to get on their calendar early to start that replacement just as quickly as possible.
It won't impact soccer season?
No, sir. Okay. No, sir. We'll work with athletics, and I know Joel wanted to be here tonight in case y'all had questions for him, but athletics has been involved in that process the entire time, and we would not take that field until all of athletics is done on that field.
Tim, I've just noticed that patchwork is in fashion. So if you just want to know,
okay.
It might be in on football fields too.
All right. I wish Joel was here to answer that one for you. Not me.
It's really in. So I want to be just clear here that the difference between what the insurance company agreed to and what we want so that we have the aesthetic look is $78,000, is it roughly?
Yes,
is that
ma'am.
right?
Yes, ma'am.
And then the remainder of this amount is for equipment that had nothing to do really with the
That's correct.
accident or mistake or whatever that is.
That is correct.
All right.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
I've got one more question. I'm sorry, Ann.
Just going to say patchwork is really in.
What's the life cycle or lifespan of these groomer tractors?
They'll last, as long as you're maintaining, which we would, obviously. The groomer tractors will outlast usually 2 field replacements, if not longer, if they're well kept.
Okay.
So I know we've already talked about Mr. Sadler's working on a place to store the equipment that's indoors and be able to.
And so they could use these on the indoor practice facilities as well as.
They absolutely.
Well as the baseball fields?
Yes. What we have is we have a schedule that we receive from the turf manufacturer that says you should use it at these intervals. We actually have 3 pieces of equipment. We currently own one, which is like a Zamboni we use like once a year. It actually goes and vacuums everything up. So that's a summer job, but we only have to use it once a year. We have one that's just like a rake, and that's really just to kind of fluff it. And then this one that we're asking for is actually the one that oscillates and actually brings the infill material back up and helps softening that surface, and that's the one that we're asking for tonight. And that's supposed to be done about once every 4 to 6 weeks on all fields. It's not just for the football fields, it's for baseball, indoor, it's every piece of turf we have.
Any other discussion, questions?
One, how long is, I know you told us once, but how long does the artificial turf usually last?
We, the stadium, we replaced it at 11 years, which is really good for that to happen. Usually it's between 8 to 10 years. We got 11 out of the stadium out here, and a lot of that depends on how much it's being used and how well it's being maintained. You're welcome.
Board would recommend approval.
And Madam President,
Mr. Sproles.
I move to approve the use of undesignated savings from the 2012 bond in the amount of $208,700.00 towards the repair of the NISD Stadium turf field and the purchase of turf maintenance equipment to be used at all district turf facilities.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Sproles, a second by Mr. Hastings. Any other discussion? All those in favor? 5-0.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you, Board.
Okay. Moving on to reports. Demographic report, Dr. Warren.
Board, we're very proud to have Mr. Templeton with us again. Bob, good to see you. It was good to see you in Austin. It's good to be home from Austin.
Yes.
But we appreciate your next report to the board on our demographics.
Thank you. It is my pleasure to be with you tonight. This is actually our third quarter report, so the housing research is from the fall. And I'll touch on the economic conditions that we're seeing across the DFW Metroplex. I'll spend a good bit of time talking about the housing market and then the enrollment projections. We continue to be very fortunate in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, very strong job growth. In fact, these are the November numbers at 2.7% job growth, which is about 101,000 jobs. I checked the December number before I came tonight. Now we're second in the country, still over 100,000 jobs being added to the DFW Metroplex. I don't see that changing in the short term within the next 1 to 2 years because many of the relocations that are coming to the DFW Metroplex are just now in the middle stages of those relocations. So definitely anticipate that we've got a couple of good years of continued job growth. The unemployment rates are very low. In fact, these are historic unemployment rates. Texas is at 3.5, DFW is at 3.2, Fort Worth at 3.3. This is problematic for the service industries, for construction, for logistics, transportation, janitorial, food service. All of the service industries tend to have a challenge finding workers when we're in this type of labor market. The housing market is expanding, or it's right at that 35,000 single-family starts across the DFW region. We do anticipate that this is about the peak across DFW. So 35,000 is kind of a high number that we've seen over the last several years. Keep in mind in 2005 and 2006, in the previous housing boom, we'd gotten as high as 50,000 homes a year. So we are not going to get anywhere close to that because there's so much restriction now on lending, and so there's not likely to see it surge up like it did back in 2005. One of the good things that we're starting to see is the inflation in the homes is starting to level just a little bit. So that, in my opinion, would be a good thing. We need to see those new home prices kind of soften just a little bit because they've gotten so expensive that it does become problematic for those younger families. Here's a graphic on that job growth across the country. Houston is number one now in the country. That's a huge change for them over the last 4 to 5 years. The energy industry is coming back. So energy is growing, which has put Houston back on top of job growth. Texas has 3 cities in the top 25. Austin is that 3rd city for job growth. It didn't make this graphic, but Austin, percentage-wise, is doing very good on job growth. In terms of new home closings, here's our DFW ranking report where we kind of show you the DFW school districts. Prosper is number 1, Frisco is 2nd, Denton is 3rd, and we're about to see Frisco even drop again. I predict they'll drop in the next quarter. As you can see, Frisco is running out of lots and running out of futures, whereas Northwest has the highest number of future lot count in the DFW region. Futures are preliminary plats of new developments. There are future phases of existing developments. So that 29,000 does give us a glimpse of the volume that is just going to keep coming to Northwest ISD. Here's a looking at the starts and closings by quarter. You'll notice in the third quarter we started 503 homes in the third quarter. That was a very strong quarter. We also closed 549 homes in the third quarter. That's one of the highest, that's the second highest closing quarter that we've seen in the last 10 years. So we definitely are going to start to push that 2,000 homes a year over the next couple of years. Here's our housing forecast. This is, I don't know that we've shown this slide previously, but we thought it'd be a good idea to show you kind of what we're thinking in terms of single-family new home projections over the next 5 years. And in 2019, we're estimating that you're going to top 2,000 new homes. We do think the peak is going to be at about 2021, when we could see about 2,500 new homes in that year, and then it'll start to trail off just a little bit. But all in all, I'd say you're definitely in a position to build about 2,000 to 2,500 homes a year for the foreseeable future, as there's plenty of lots, plenty of futures, and plenty of raw land available for builders to build.
Here's a map of your current elementary attendance zones. It's a thematic map based on annual closings. We've mapped your top 10 most active subdivisions. The top 10 account for 74% of all of your single-family housing can be found in the top 10. So it's a really nice, clean map where we can show you where a majority of the single-family housing is taking place. It's a thematic map based on annual closings. The darkest red zones are closing more than 200 homes a year, and you have 4 elementary zones closing more than 200 homes a year. And most of our fast growth clients are lucky to have 1 or 2 that are closing more than 200 homes a year, and you've got 4. You've got 4 in the orange, the dark orange zone, that are closing between 101 and 200. So this is just illustrating that the growth is spread out all across the district. It's not concentrated in one area of your district. It is going along 287. It's moving up I-35, and so the growth is spread into several elementary attendance zones. Here's a map of where the highest concentration of vacant developed lots are. It's a thematic map based on vacant developed lots. Wellington was just recently delivered, so it is starting. There is new home construction starting there, and Wellington has 470 vacant developed lots. It's in the Schluter Elementary Zone, so you can see that 287 corridor around the Eaton High School is just going to continue to see a lot of new housing. This map,
Bob, hold on
yes.
a second. Mr. Hastings, is this something like you were talking to me about last night? It would be helpful for you to see where, specifically where all the developments are.
And we have maps that list every one of them. It tends to be overpowering because there's so many subdivisions that are building homes, but we do have a detailed list.
Tim, can we get those for the board members? Please, that question came up last night.
Yes, and so it's a great report that shows every active subdivision, but this is just a very quick way to see where a majority of the activity is taking place. Here's a thematic map based on your future subdivisions, your future lot inventory, and those red elementary zones have more than 3,000 vacant developed lots. The dark orange have between 1,501 and 3,000. The burnt orange are between 751 and 1,500. And there again, what this map illustrates is you've got future activity that is spread all across the district in the far north Justin, all the way down into Haslett, and getting as far west as Prairie View Elementary Zone with that Alpha Ranch with about 2,563. Sendare Ranch, still the highest number of futures at 3,587 future lots. Here's a table of the single-family information. The most active elementary zone right now as of the third quarter is Curtis Elementary with 488 starts. Second most active is Justin with 324. This has been a change over the last couple of years. You know, a few years ago, Justin had very low starts, but with the Harvest and some of the other developments, now Justin has shot up, and they are the second most active elementary zone for new home starts. Third is Hatfield. But what I'll point out is you have 8 elementary zones that are building more than 100 homes per year. And there again, that roughly represents anywhere from, 20 to 80 elementary students per year in each of those elementary zones. So the growth is going to be strongest in those 8 elementary zones. Of course, Curtis has the highest amount of activity right now, but when you look at the vacant developed lot supply, they've got 153 vacant developed lots and 653 futures. So within about 2 to 4 years, that Curtis zone will start to kind of wind down, but then that growth is going to shift. Justin will likely be your number 1 most active subdivision for our elementary zone. Of course, that's the area that you're building the new elementary school. So that new elementary school is perfectly placed into where you have some of your most active single-family development. Here's a map that just kind of illustrates, and so we'll have a report that kind of goes with this map that shows you the name of the subdivision, how many vacant developed lots, how many new home starts. But you can see those green outlines are your active subdivisions, and there's about 2,600 lots available for those builders to build on. There's about 29,700 futures, plus you'll notice there's still lots of other vacant land. So the district truly is going to be a fast growth district for about 30 to 30 plus years. You're going to be growing at a very fast rate. Of those futures, there is groundwork underway on 2,600 lots. So bulldozers, excavation, streets coming in on about 2,600 lots. That'll then allow for those builders to keep building at about that 2,000 home per year pace. I'm not going to touch on all the active subdivisions, but some of your highlights: Berkshire, 760 total lots, 24 homes under construction during the third quarter. They're building about 100 to 120 homes per year. There is a future school site in this development. The current yield is 0.39, but that yield is going to go up a lot as we get more homes occupied. Typically in this area, we're seeing some of your highest yields of students per house that are actually pushing as high as 0.6 to 0.8 students per house. Just across 287 there, we've got Hawthorne Meadows, 603 total lots. There were 125 homes under construction during the third quarter. They're building about 200 homes per year. The current yield there is 0.42 students per house. And then you'll also notice some kind of turquoise shaded areas. Those are designated for multifamily, and that represents about 1,000 units of multifamily that will happen sometime in the next several years. But there are no plans that we have we don't have any active plans for that multifamily right now. Some of the other large areas just to the north of the Eaton High School, North Star, which is 2,124 future lots. It is currently split between Prairie View Elementary and Haslett Elementary. The final plats for Phase 1 were approved this past summer for 408 lots. The groundwork is underway on Phase 1. We do expect to see homes starting in this area late 2019, possibly early 2020. So definitely during the next school year, you will start to see some families moving into this North Star development. Sendera Ranch, it's a total of about 8,308 lots. There are about 3,587 future lots within the Sendera Ranch Elementary Zone. There's about 1,360 future lots in the Thompson Elementary Zone. All of the current activity is taking place in Thompson, and they're building about 185 to 200 homes per year. This yield in the Sendera Ranch area is 0.934, which is a very high yield. In Sendera Ranch, Thompson is yielding 0.76. And I suspect that Thompson yield will move up a little bit as those homes age, and we'll see yields that could float up a little higher there as well. Now moving over into the Justin area, Pecan Square is a Hillwood development, so it's going to look and feel very similar to Harvest. Of course, all of Pecan Square is in the Northwest School District. It represents about 3,425 future lots. The groundwork started this past summer. First lots could be delivering third quarter of 2019, which would put first residents expected late 2019 or early 2020. So it's also going to impact the school district during the next school year. They anticipate building about 200 homes per year, and this area has become the hot spot for the DFW Metroplex. In fact, the Harvest development, when you include both the Argyle piece and the Northwest piece, was the #1 master plan community in all of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So this area has been very successful for Hillwood, which is then what's prompted them to do this Pecan Square. Timberbrook, which is just north of the city of Justin, 1,550 total lots. Sections 1A and B with 209 lots were delivered in the second quarter. First homes are under construction. In fact, I suspect you may already have some families that are just starting to move into the school district. That price range is $250,000 to $425,000. Now here's a look at the multifamily picture. We are tracking several multifamily projects. There are about 858 multifamily units that are nearing completion. Of those, 280 units are age restricted, but we like to keep those in front of the district so that when you hear about apartment complexes, you know which ones could have students and which ones won't. Well, age-restricted units will not have any students. There are roughly 4,200 future multifamily units that are in various planning stages. Those are those kind of turquoise-colored polygons on the map, so you can kind of see those locations, but we do track those just like we do single-family. But right now, the impact of growth is still strongest from single-family. So single-family growth is what drives your enrollment growth. The multifamily truly makes up a very small percentage of your numbers right now. In fact, here's a look at those multifamily yields. So those red and orange circles represent those multifamily areas that are yielding. The orange are yielding 0.5 to 0.75, and the red is yielding greater than 0.75. So you can see overall, we've got just a few complexes that are yielding more than 0.5. In fact, that red area over in the Roanoke is actually a manufactured housing community. It's not an apartment, but the manufactured housing communities show up in our database like apartments because it's one parcel with many addresses. But that is the Greenfield Estates, which has about 68 manufactured housing homes, and they've got about 55 students in that area. Now, this is just looking at our geocoded data. We geocode your students every fall where we match the students to their address so we can see what the yields are by single family and multifamily. We geocoded about 24,000 students this past fall. And you can see that that's a 3-year increase of about 3,163 students. We have 1,082 students that reside in the multifamily, so almost 5%, about 4.5% to 5% of your students are in multifamily. We've got about 100 clients that we work with. The average for most of our clients is in that 10 to 12%. So you're still way below what we see with the majority of our clients. Our highest yielding multifamily ratio is with Richardson ISD. Richardson ISD has 48% of their students that live in multifamily. And so you really are a single family is the majority of your households within your school district. Now, we use that geocoded data, and there's a couple of other ways we use the data. We also are tracking newcomers, new to the district. So these are students that were not in your school district the previous year, and we do that by looking for new student IDs compared to the previous database. We don't include kindergartners because practically all kindergartners are new to the district. So we only look at 1st through 12th grade, and we've got a pretty consistent pattern over the last 2 years, about 2,800 newcomers new to the district this year, but we had about 23, almost 2,400 leavers. Leavers are the opposite. Those are student IDs that are missing from this year's student database that were here last year. A majority of those are purely students that their families have moved outside the district. So as the district's population grows and we get more households in the district, that number of leavers is just automatically going to start to go up because the size of the population is getting bigger. Now, what we watch for and look for is any dramatic trends, and you'll notice there was a pretty significant change in 2017 when we had 2,300 leavers compared to the 2016 where we had 2,000 leavers. That's the year that we started to see the impact of the charter. So the charter impact caused a little bit of a surge in leavers in that 1 year. We do this every year, so this will be a good database that we'll watch and see how it changes from year to year. Now, here's a map that shows you where that newcomer density is the highest. Those red and orange areas have the highest concentration of newcomers to the district. If we map your most active subdivisions on top of these, that's what it's going to reveal, is that where we have the most new home closings, that's where we have the most newcomers coming into the school district. The highest elementary for most newcomers, Curtis and Schluter, and that's where we have the highest concentration of new homes being built. Here's a look at the enrollment projections. These are from, the enrollment is from the fall. So keep in mind your enrollment is changing every week. Every week you're getting new students that move into the district. The elementary number will grow all year long because elementary families, they will move their kids into their new elementaries as soon as they come. Secondary parents will tend to wait until they'll make the move in the fall, but then if they move late in the spring, they typically won't bring their kids to enroll until we get to the summer for the next school year. That's why high school enrollments tend to peak at the break and not go up in the fall, but elementary numbers will climb all year long. This past fall, we had 24,116 students, which was about a 4.2% growth. The ninth grade is the largest grade for this year at 1,952. The second highest grade was the sixth grade at 1,942. As I mentioned, we are forecasting a little bit of an increase in the housing, so we do expect you're going to build about 2,000 homes, which that's going to generate about 1,200 new students or a 1,200 increase in enrollment for the 2019-2020 year. That'll put your enrollment next fall at 25,324. In 10 years, we could see, in 5 years, we could see growth of about 6,800 students, and that'll put your enrollment in 2023 at 30,916. So you will top 30,000 students within 5 years. In 10 years, the enrollment could top 38,000 kids. Now, here's a look at the projections at the campus level. Now, keep in mind, this is based on your current elementary attendance zones. Because we don't have an official zone for the next elementary school, I can't build in those numbers until we have an approved attendance zone. But what you'll notice is you've got a lot of overcrowding that's taking place over the next several years. You literally are growing about an elementary's worth of students every year. Next year, you're growing 543 elementary students. In 2020, you're growing 650, so literally almost an elementary student's worth of growth per year. At the secondary level, looking at the middle schools, Adams Middle School, it's going to be your largest middle school next year at 13,007. By 2020, we'll have 2 middle schools that will be just over capacity, Adams, and then Medlin could get just a little bit over 1,170 students. At your high schools, now I do know you've got some additions that are going to be coming online. Those additions are going to push out your capacities for a few years. But what I'll point out is that Eaton High School will likely top 3,000 students in that 2021 year, and that Byron Nelson High School will likely top 3,000 students in 2023. I'll summarize and would be happy to answer any questions. The Fort Worth economy is very strong. We are continuing to see very strong job growth in the Fort Worth DFW region. The Alliance Corridor, Fort Worth, very strong job growth. Unemployment rates at 3.5%. Northwest is on pace to have nearly 1,900 new homes in 2018, and we're forecasting between 2,000 and 2,500 homes a year for the next 3 to 5 years. Wellington, Caraway, Timberbrook have started home building and will have first residents in late 2018, early 2019. Roughly 5% of the total population reside in multifamily, so we've got just a very small impact from multifamily. Schluter and Curtis elementary zones have added more than 200 newcomers to the district this year, and we can expect an increase of about 6,800 students during the next 5 years, and that'll put our enrollment in 2023 at 30,916, and in 10 years our enrollment could top 38,000 kids. Be happy to answer any questions.
Just a couple quick questions, and more going back to the very beginning when you talked about the relocations, and where are they coming from and what industries are bringing folks to Dallas?
Professional services, and it's very interesting. When you drive in 114, you've recently, the last couple of years, TD Ameritrade, and then is it Charles Schwab? Charles Schwab, it's the professional services, Fidelity, and that are really driving the job growth in that 114-170 corridor. And if you go further east, it's State Farm and Liberty Mutual, and so it is primarily the professional services, and I'd say logistics with Alliance. It's around the logistics.
Any other questions? Anybody? Thank you.
Always a pleasure.
Great job.
Thank you.
Our next report is Facilities Planning and Construction Monthly Report. Dr. Warren?
Mr. McClure.
All right, good evening, Board. I'm going to run through, we're going to do a tag team here. I'm going to do the first part, and then Sarah's going to finish up the construction piece for me. The rest, first I want to start with, maybe, sorry, wrong remote. Attendance boundary update. I want to give you a quick attendance boundary update. We've had a couple meetings. You see there the committee consists of, we had an administrator from every campus, a PTA member from every campus. We also identified those areas that are being considered and made special invitations to residents in those areas, working with our principals on identifying those. So total committee invitation of about 85 that was sent out. Our district level administrators, that does not include our campus level, we asked them, we had about 17 there, and then of course it was open to visitors as well. You can see the numbers there from the first two meetings on the 24th. We had about 73 total in attendance, and the 30th last night, about 66 total in attendance. We have remaining meetings on the 7th and the 14th, and then we're in the process of scheduling a Facebook Live once that committee reaches a recommendation. The intent is to do a Facebook Live and be able to get some feedback off the Facebook Live, and then if needed, if the feedback is sour or has some points that we didn't consider, re-engage that committee before bringing you that final recommendation. So get a lot of opportunities there. There's the committee process and kind of the belief strategies that we're going through right now. We've talked to, Templeton was there with us as we're there with us every night, but first meeting we went through the history and the growth, the projections that you just saw, went through our boundary strategies, the type of things that are important to us. I'm going to talk on that for just a minute because that's also why we engaged the thought exchange. I'm going to show you some of that stuff here in just a second because we said that's what we know is important to us and what past committees have said, but what does the rest of the community say is important or should be considerations when we're looking at boundary changes. They line actually real well with some of the stuff that we have, but there is some other ones in there. Recommended attendance boundary changes that they'll look through those. We started that last night. We started that conversation last night. Actually made some definitive decisions last night. We still got some to make in the process, so that's good. And then the Board of Trustee recommendation that we will bring to you ultimately. We've been telling them, I like this analogy. It's like a game of chess, especially coming right on the heels of Bob's presentation. We talked about a normal chessboard. We all know what a normal chessboard looks like, or I hope we do. And that in chess, the strategy is to try to stay 3 or 4 moves ahead of your opponent. And unfortunately, the Northwest ISD chessboard looks something like this. It's multicolors. You don't know who's on which team. It looks like something out of an Escher drawing. And our chessboard continues to change because a development pops up, or a charter school pops up, or our apartment building pops up. And so that's the analogy we've been focused around this year is we have a constantly changing chessboard. And so we can try to predict the future, but that's really only as good as it's lived out. So we live that out as we go along. So that's just kind of the way we've talked to them about it. It's been well received. I want to get into the thought exchange statistics, and before I go over these just a little bit, I want to show you something that's on there on the website that kind of helps explain thought exchange. This is, I'm going to start it, and you're going to watch it build. But what you're going to see here, I'm going to describe it just before I start, is you're going to see 2 icons. You're going to see a person icon, and you're going to see a thought icon. And you'll see those things appear as they did. This is our exchange, so this is how it started happening. You'll see people come on, then you'll see a thought come on. Then you'll see people connect to that thought, okay? And so what I wanted to show you is just how this thing builds as time goes along. What you'll notice is there's never a thought that doesn't get viewed. and that's due to their algorithm. So you have people out there that aren't connected to a thought because they're looking and they're trying to read and they're deciding on what they may want to comment or not comment on, but rate and star. But inevitably, every thought gets pushed through the system. And that's the nice thing about this is they're really trying to make sure that everyone's thought gets equal exposure during the process. And so then you gather those ratings, and if we let this thing play out, it would take quite a while, but ultimately, I'll just fast forward here and show you at the end, this is what it looks like. It's pretty crazy. So, but again, you never have a situation that there's not a thought that hadn't been viewed. So no one's thought has been on and then gets siloed to the other, to some end of the spectrum where nobody gets to see it. There is one caveat to that. If it gets flagged because it has some sort of commentary that we think is ugly, then we do flag those, and those can be pulled out. For instance, sometimes someone will start talking about multifamily resident kids versus single-family resident kids, and we say, well, that's not really something that's appropriate to weigh in on, and we will put that thought to the side. So those are the only exceptions to that rule. So going back to our statistics, flip back over. Currently, we've had 1,264 participants. You see the numbers there. About 45% of them have shared a thought. About 51% of them have actually participated. And then in the ratings of those thoughts. And then about 655 have explored the system in some way, shape, or form. So really good participation levels, I think. Here's kind of our demographics that we've asked when you get on the system. Just so you can kind of see who's responding. 86% of the people responding are current parents or future parents of our students. You got about 3% that are former parents. The one that I liked in this is we actually have 64 students that have actually got on and responded. So this actually, because we sent this out globally, we didn't send it only to parents. We put it out there for anybody who wanted to respond. We've had 64 kids take the initiative, so 6% of the respondents have actually come from students, which I found was really nice. The second part there is, are you currently employed by the district? I'm happy with that percentage breakdown too. It's roughly about 24% actually are employees of the district, and the other 76% are actual non-employees of the district. The next one you see is what grade level describes your child, and if you have more than one, use the oldest child. You can see a lot of heavy participation at the young grade levels. If you look at 23% in 5th through K and 32% in 4th through K, PK through 4, and then 37% at the senior levels. The reason we use 8 through 12 and 5 through 7 is because that's where those transitions happen. So we don't say 9 through 12 because they're already at a campus. So we dip down to that grade level that's going to transition in to help know that. Your youngest child, if you have multiple children, your youngest, and you can see there over half of our respondents have been at the elementary level, the pre-K through 4th level. So that's good because they're obviously with us for a long time. So they're responding according to that. And then the last one is how long have you been a resident of the district? Pretty even spread there, a little bit more on the 10 plus years, 34% there, but then the other ones are right hovering in the 20 to 24 percentile. I'm going to share this with you. This is the Thought Exchange results as of today. I'm just showing you the top 20 and what the themes are. The Thought Exchange is open through Sunday. I think Emily and them are going to send out a reminder tomorrow to remind people one more time to get out and put their thoughts on. So it's open through Sunday. So this could change. But in the top 20, you can see we had one respondent thought there that actually covered 3 of those first 3. So that's why you see the 0.3. One thought they actually included all 3 of those scenarios. But about 7.3 thoughts, the top rated thoughts, were dealing with neighborhoods close to their schools. The next one was dealing with classroom sizes or campus sizes. The next one, 4.3 out of 20 of the top 20 rated thoughts was future growth. And then you get to the single ones, the minimize future changes, the safety of kids, and grandfathering existing students. So the nice thing is that those top things do match real well with what we had already kind of identified, but it's good to see that coming from our community and our constituents as a whole. And again, we'll continue to monitor that and group those into those categories and get you the total percentage of respondents on the thoughts when this is all said and done after Sunday. Here's just the timeline where we are. We're sitting right in the middle of that orange block that says committee work, right at the end of the thought exchange event. And then as I explained earlier, not really going to go through boundaries with you tonight because there's no recommendation yet. They're still working through that. But we'll bring you those recommendations. Obviously, the meetings are open. We did have 2 board members attend last night. Thank you for that. Please attend if you would like to attend and see where we are. But know that we'll be coming to those recommendations soon, taking those out on Facebook Live, and then ultimately bringing that back for you all to take action on and let us know what we need to do. Any questions on that before I move into the planning projects? Okay. Planning projects, we got the natatorium. We're in the process of finalizing the design. Y'all had also told us that you allowed us to go look at partnerships. We're in the process of finalizing that to bring back to you and tell you what options we see before us. So hopefully to have that for you at the next board meeting to talk about those options and get some direction for you on which way to go, given what we've learned. And then we're in the design of the Northwest High School field house. Eaton addition, of course, you approved that tonight for our contractor, so we're early in that stage. The next one you're going to be seeing coming on is we're working with purchasing to get our RFQ out for Chisholm, Pike, and Medlin addition. So I would say hopefully in the next, probably by March, we will have recommendation there for you for a contractor on that one. But both those are early in the programming and design. We've been meeting with the campuses and with our directors of fine arts and all those people to make sure we're covering all the bases there on the design. Natatorium, just real quick, imagery, again, still working through some of the final design decisions, and depending on if we have partners or not, some of this could change, but there's some of the rough imagery to begin with. We've talked about the location, really right across the street from where we are, next to the baseball fields. The plan, which is a 50-meter pool with a warm-up pool to the side. We've mentioned before the ability that would be able to hold up to 5 high schools if need be, which was one of the things we were trying to get as many high schools in there as we could until we'd have to build another one. Some medical space that's part of that exploration, some training space that's part of that exploration that you see there, and then on the upper level, mostly just seating and concessions and restroom, and then that block of therapy space that we've talked about exploring partnerships with. So kind of grand scheme of things there. This is the very initial just kind of site of where we are looking to put the field house that we're in discussions with on the Northwest High School. That's supporting the softball and baseball. You see this road that continues and turns, that would go into the natatorium site. So part of this is to connect a road, kind of a back-of-house service road from Pike around to the natatorium, and then that field house would sit right off of that area. That's really a place for our students who currently are either running across the parking lot or changing in their clothes in their car or in the dugout. Gives them a home next to their play surfaces that they don't have that our other high schools get to experience. So that project's underway. Not a lot of imagery to show you beyond that, just the fact that we're in that process of starting that. Same thing with Eaton. Eaton expansion, getting that up to accommodate the 3,200 student capacity, which will be there before we know it. It's actually starting to outgrow Byron Nelson, so it's actually going to, I think, reach that capacity sooner than Byron Nelson will, but it'll be a close race. Again, this is the project site area. This is not necessarily the shape the building's going to be. It's just defining the area that we're trying to place the building. We've been working with the Principal Blankenship over there and his team as we've been exploring these options on what goes into that. That is the area. It won't be that large. It's actually going to be reduced a little bit there, and it will take a shape and a form that complements the existing building and fits with the current architecture is what's happening there. So that's it on the planning side. I'll turn it over to Sarah and let her update you on all our construction.
Good evening. As Tim said, we have a lot going on when it comes to the planning of the construction, but we also have a lot going on when it comes to the actual construction of our facilities. Just an overview of what we are currently active at is that we're still finishing up the ag barn, finishing up the barn 2, the pig barn. That was our location for all the animals as we did additions and renovations to the existing arena, the second barn or the third barn, and then the new cow barn. Lance Thompson, as we all know, is out in harvest. We have started on Sendera and Thompson Elementary, the typical 650 to 850 addition renovation that we are doing at those schools. Byron Nelson, we have the field house. It's going pretty strong right now on phase 1, and we are in the very beginning phase of starting construction at Byron for the phase 2, which is the 3-story addition, classroom addition. And then not to forget, safety and security, I just kept that up there because that is just a continuous until the end of the school year. We will have all schools this summer ready to go with our upgrades when it comes to the front entry, not being able to enter the school without somebody having a visual on you and speaking to you before actually entering each school. This is just a view of the Ag Barn arena. It used to be an open facility. We actually closed it in with all the metal, as well as for making it as warm as possible during these cold days. But then we also added the overhead doors, so in the summer hot days, we can open up and hopefully get a breeze through there. If you squint closely at the ceiling, there are big fans that we installed to help with that circulation when needed. That's a better picture. It gives you a better view. There's 4 fans currently in that location. This is a picture with the arena behind us. The far right, or the right barn, is the swine barn, which actually has been started to close up on the metal. This was taken last week at this time, so we've already started closing it up, and slab has been poured inside that barn. The left barn is the goat and sheep barn, which is completed. And the far left barn is the new cow barn, and that's the only barn that we have that is actually open to the environment. As you'll see in a future picture, the cows have their pens that are connected to outside to where their owner can take them outside and eventually get them into the field where we will have a fenced-off area for them to roam. It's not the prettiest picture. These are barns where we have animals, but this is the goat and sheep barn, and as you can see, there's a lot of sticks hanging from the ceiling. A lot of the problems before we came here is there was not enough power to this facility to give CTE program the things that they needed to do their program, as well as even heat for the animals. Who knew our animals needed heat in the winter? Thought they're outside animals, but learning a lot on this project. This second one is this is the cow barn, which was the far left barn, the brand new barn that is open to environment, and then that shows you the pen that is able to open up on the backside for their owners to manipulate if they want to keep them in the barn or bring them outside. This is the pig barn. This is where we housed all the animals during the construction of all the other facilities on this site. So this was taken a week ago today. The slab's already poured, and the metal barn is almost enclosed. There's not much left to do after that except the pins. And then, as you see, the sticks are hanging down. We have more power in there to give the students and staff what they need in order to take care of their animals. Just another view. So Lance Thompson, just to give you an orientation of the site and how the school fits on it, the bottom parking lot is your front entry. The top one is the back drive parking lot. This was a picture taken, again, a week ago. We're looking at the yellow building is one of the academic wings, 2-story academic wings. If you look to the left, you'll see a little bit of the second academic wing, which is right there. I am happy to say we are 100% on all structural concrete poured, except the connection of the 2 academic wings. We don't have the steel up yet, but that's just something minor, but it's good to be out of the ground. So I gave you this perspective because it's hard to take pictures out on a job site where there's no walls. So I wanted to give you this picture and show you the next picture, and it's pretty much the same perspective with studs. So you can look to the right, you'll see the wall with the windows from the classroom and their doors. That hallway takes you out to the main part of the building. Looking directly in the middle back of that picture, you can see where the studs stop midpoint, and that's where that presentation area is, where the fur-down is, and then you'll have the classrooms to the right, or to the left. That is the collaboration space that we have at every pod, which this was kindergarten and first grade. We have second and third together, and then fourth and fifth together. This is just a picture from behind That's at the end. There's a storefront that's kind of a quiet place, little focus room for small group kids if they need to be able to get away from the larger group. Again, it's hard to show you guys what you're really looking at, but this is a picture of the exterior stairs from the second floor of the academic wing. This is, when we were talking to all of our staff in the design part of this prototype, a lot of people want to go outside, but the sun is too hot. There's nowhere to go. So the kids can be out of the sun, the direct sun, the heat. So this is a covered, as you would say, patio, but it's a learning patio for each 4 grade levels. So we have one for kindergarten, first grade, second and third, fourth and fifth. They all have it, as well as the fourth wing would be pre-K, PPCD, special ed. They have their own patio as well. So this is not much, but it's the shot just right of the academic wings. We don't have the structure up yet in the middle of the building, which is the library and the cafeteria. That'll go up pretty fast. You can see there are 3 steel columns next to the gym out there. There's actually more out there now. And this gym is up. We have, that's our storm shelter. This will be our first storm shelter for our elementary schools. This was, again, taken last week. We already have the slab. It's already poured. So it's just working our way from that way towards the academic wing when it comes to structural, and we are doing pretty good on that schedule. So our typical additions for our 650 schools to 850, purple is the new additions for Cinderella Ranch. There we go. We are 90% at underground utilities, and we are starting piers tomorrow on the first section, and then we'll start at one area and then move to the other 2. Just some pictures showing the site. Sorry for the shade. Sun goes down a little earlier these days. And then again, Thompson. Thompson is similar to actually Granger. We had a lot of boundary obstacles. We did, if you can see on that far left wing, we didn't have enough room where the road was to put our kindergarten classrooms. So what we did, just as similar as Granger, is we put it on the other side because we actually have exterior doors in that hallway coming out both sides of those wings. We just had to make a few adjustments. And so these are just some pictures around the site, but we are 70% underground here, and we'll start piers next week. Byron Nelson Fieldhouse. Just giving you the orientation of where it sits on the site. It is directly next to the softball competition. It used to be the old softball practice field. Show you an image of the field house, and then this is taken last week. The slab that's down is the storm shelter for this facility. So this facility will have a storm shelter for the campus. This is just another view. You can see Medlin in the far right. You see steel going up. There is dirt down there to the right of that steel, but all structural steel on the first floor is poured as of today. So for our addition, our phase 2, our 3-story classrooms are going to be overlapping where our current GeoWells are for this site. So we are currently relocating those GeoWells to north and south of the fine arts practice field in order to start the addition when we need to, and won't affect the school when it comes to the HVAC. Just another picture on the south side of the band. And I just want to remind everybody, we have a new construction site. Please go there if you want any information. If you have any questions, that's a great tool for you guys. It's www.nisdconstruction.org. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
The field house for Byron Nelson, what all is going to be inside that building? It's
outside sports. So football, baseball, softball, track, soccer.
So there's showers and changing rooms?
Yes, ma'am.
Are there
Weight room.
offices?
There's even a weight room, coach's office. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Because it's quite a facility. I was expecting, I don't know, field house to me was a much smaller structure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a couple of questions. I was at a bar today eating lunch at the bistro. Where the baseball practice field used to be, what's going in there? What is that?
We have a parking lot. We are adding on just a little bit right now during our construction phase, and we'll add on in the future if needed when it comes to if the growth needs it.
And then I'm glad you showed that picture of the GeoWells because I noticed all those flags.
Mm-hmm.
And my daughter asked me, are we losing our practice area for band? And
No.
I said, oh, so that's going to stay. Okay.
Absolutely.
And then a question on the field houses. I remember I thought there was going to be a design where there was going to be a grass hill incorporated into that for conditioning. Did that kind of go away or?
Budgetary reasons, we had to accommodate.
I just thought that was a great idea. But
You still have a training component there and kind of an amphitheater. Those steps that you see there at the front are jump steps, so they can actually work out. And there's also the athletic weight room is on the mezzanine level there above the storm shelter, as well as, it's a little hard to see in that picture, but you do have a turf area so they can run sprints. They can do weight and tire flips and stuff out on top of that mezzanine. They can do jumps up that hill. And so it is using the building still as a training component. All because of the reason of getting that storm shelter in. We've got this nice hard space. We might as well use it as a component as we can. So that was the philosophy there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next report is December Financial and Investment Report. Dr. Warren?
Mr. Griswold.
Yes, here we go. Okie doke. This is the month of December. Essentially, we had about $250 million invested. We earned a little over 2%. Interest rates, of course, have come up quite a bit. What we've seen, though, is that everybody was predicting just a month or so ago that there might be as many as 3 rate hikes in December in 2019. Now the odds of there being any rate hikes in 2019 is very low. The economy is slowing a bit. If you look at housing, because of the higher interest rates are hitting mortgages. I meant to ask Bob. I was kind of curious because he showed 1,900 homes being built this year, but then going up to 2,500 next year. But I'm kind of curious to see what he's thinking about in terms of the average price of the average home being built, because this is a very strong market, but we have seen a slowdown on the appreciation of prices in neighborhoods like Trophy Club and things like that. As a result, we currently have most of our money in overnight deposits. We've been waiting to invest the tax receipts that we received in December and January. We were thinking that with the stopping of the government shutdown and maybe some sort of resolution or at least slowing in the trade war that we might see interest rates go up. But the slowness in the economy at this point has kept the rates down. It's kind of a curious thing, though, because the rates are down, but yet we're borrowing $1 trillion at the federal level every year. And you would think you'd have to raise rates at some point to be able to sell that much money, but so far not yet. So we're probably going to go ahead and ladder out the money here in early February that we have on hand at this point that's currently in the tax pool accounts. That's probably the biggest questions we have on investments right now. We'll be planning, we'll be working with Tim to get updated cash flows, which we need in order to start looking at how much we need to borrow in May to finance the rest of the 2019 and 2020 construction. So that's on the horizon as well. We earned $444,000 for the month of December, and that's $2.2 million for year to date. And we're tracking with all of our benchmarks at this point. Be happy to answer your questions.
Moving on to item number 10, consider any item removed from the consent agenda. There were none. Board President's Report. Board applications. The window is open to accept applications to run for a place on the school board. Packets are available at the NISD Administration Building Monday through Friday from 8 to 5 p.m. Completed packets are due by 5 p.m. on Friday, February 15th. Election Day is Saturday, May 4th. And Superintendent. superintendent's report. Dr. Wolf?
Board, just a couple of things at your place is the latest TASA talking points. I'm going to send those to you every time they put out them. There's several different subjects. You have a finance white sheet. You have talking points on the A through F accountability system, on pre-kindergarten, and on vouchers. So those are great as you try to establish relationships with our state leaders. Some great talking points that align very well with our priorities. Let me remind you, Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday afternoon at 2, Peter Pan at Eaton. That's going to be a great show. Next Thursday, this February 7th, we have all of our high school showcases and the senior legacy presentations at all high schools in Steele. And then our next boundary committee meeting is Thursday, February 7th, and it will be posted as well. I do appreciate Judy and Ron coming in. Any comments, Ron, Judy, on the committee meeting from last night?
I guess because just the number of communities being built and the total number of projected houses and where they're at is just kind of mind-boggling when you start trying to think about planning schools, especially in that growth area there that feeds into Roanoke and the Justin right now. Talk of, in 3 years having 2 more elementary schools in that area simply because of the number of houses that are being grown, that are being produced is just really kind of mind-boggling. I wanted to ask him if he had an elementary in his back pocket when he was telling us.
I just want to say Tim did an excellent job explaining it, and had some good comments, and he listened to all of them and took them all in, and I thought it was a good process. I appreciate it.
Amen. Mrs. Scott, that's all we have.
Move.
Hey, Fairmark, thank you.